But that trailer doesn't have enough.
The roads are bad, the trailer is bad, the tires are removed, they are stealing their own fuel from the trailer. So, how would they carry it from Kaduna to Abeokuta? So, instead of blaming anybody, let us say, how do we solve the problem? And that's why I say,
I will need to correct
sister,
something
I'm sorry,
they've said.
we are being short-sighted.
Yes, before
No,
when
I want to come to this.
Instead of solving
There's something
if you cherry pick,
No.
if I have 100 customers, and yes, she has said it, and you've taken the heavy paying
Chineme
one.
has
With
made
the
that point.
non-paying one.
No. Chineme made that point. He made that
She
point
said 30%.
eloquently.
And
No.
that is from my own angle. I need to say it from my own angle.
No, because I needed to know
From my own angle, why should you take, if I have 100 customers,
Right.
and you look at them, why can't you take the 70% that are not paying and make them eligible? Okay, let us be sincere.
they are within his
She's
level.
not being
Can I
selfish.
speak, please?
Okay,
Because
well,
I'm-
he
yes,
wanted-
I'm just,
okay.
Yes, I'm just
Joy.
trying to, yes.
You were going to talk about the role of the National Assembly, why they stopped the discos from being able to raise their tariff.
Well, I'm not aware that the National Assembly stopped the discourse. I don't know. So I think it's for Udutan to answer. But there are some issues that he
They
raised.
did.
Of course.
Yes, I'm not aware. Now, and I can't speak on an issue that I'm not, I don't have a mastery of knowledge. Let me not say something.
But
I'm
is the
not
tariff
supposed to say.
correct or not?
Now, the issue of cost-reflective tariff, I want Nigerians to ask themselves the question, what is cost-reflective tariff?
Appropriate pricing.
Yes, appropriate pricing, right? And what is appropriate?
How much do we buy? I said we buy at 68. We're selling
What
it at
is appropriate? Because now, see, let me tell you, like he rightly said, I was part of the reform process, okay? Now, like he rightly said, we borrow the Delhi model in India. In the Delhi model, we had A, T, and C, not A, T, C, and C. He didn't tell you the meaning of the A, T, C, and C. The second C that was borrowed in was a Nigerian factor. Why should you, as a consumer, be paying for their inability to collect? That is the second C.
Collection losses.
Yeah, collection losses.
Right.
If I come to collect from you and I'm not able to collect, then that is a loss to we, the consumers, not to them. So if you check, there is no risk that the distribution companies are ready to take. Like I said, because I don't have a contract with them, whenever I speak, I don't really want to directly speak to them because we don't have contractual relationship. But that doesn't mean that people out there don't know the full facts. Now, that is one. What is cost-reflective tariff? If you are insisting on cost-reflective tariff, government, give me cost-reflective tariff, otherwise I will not be able to pay fully. What has already been approved? How much are you collecting? Let's say, like you said, 31 naira, right? The 31 naira, how many percent are you able to collect? You declare that you can collect just about 20-something%. And you are asking for a tariff increase of how many percent to get it to 68. 31 naira, you are collecting 20%.
I understand your mathematics.
Yes. So when we increase it to 63 or 68 naira, how
still
many
haven't
percent
moved.
will you collect?
Yes, correct.
So we are still in this conundrum of
Yes,
catch
yes.
22.
It is a conundrum.
Yes. So
Yes.
that is one. Number two, when he raised the issue of how our gas prices were escalated and the cost was passed to him, yes, he failed to inform the audience, the Nigerian audience, that in the MITO is what we call the pricing methodology.
Right.
It is a 10-year methodology with a biannual review built into it. Biannual, that's every 6 months.
Right.
So now, every 6 months, NEC has what they call the MITO minor review. And within that review, they will check from January to June what has changed from the inflation.
Has that been done
Wait
ever?
now, can I finish? When you're talking, I didn't interrupt
Okay.
you. Be as
Let
gentleman
us
as
finish.
possible, please.
Finish.
Yes. So within that period, NEC captures the change in inflation, captures the change in forex, and all other factors that are built into the MITO. Now, what NEC is expected to do is that when the next review period comes, like July, which is normally the 1st of July, all that the discos have lost within the 6 months period will be recoverable. Right now, that minor review has been suspended because of course you know that NEC, the commission in NEC was suspended for about the last one left on the 20th of December, the current one, that is 20th of December 2015. The new ones were appointed on the 20th of February 2017. Can you see the gap?
Right.
And it takes the commission to be able to sit down and approve any change. So that's if you want to call it arrears, between that 2015 to 2017, right now, this week I think they're already working on the minor review. So all those arrears will be given back to them. But then Ojutan will not come back to this studio to tell Nigerians that they have been given the backlogs they have been given.
But of course, the journalists will tell Nigerians.
Okay, now, secondly, let me conclude. I need to say something about that. I need to just write it down. When you were talking, I was writing it down. When you were talking, I was writing, please. Okay, now, secondly.
I take exception to that.
Hold on.
And I have the right to reply.
Hold on.
No minor review has been done.
Right.
She has now given an excuse for NEC and for federal government.
I didn't
For that, but
give
that's very
excuse.
good.
That's the
Fine.
process.
That's not my business. That's not the process. The process is that when you know that the captain of a ship is going to retire in December, and you've known that since May, you could have made all effort to ensure that you don't just use a clerk member or a messenger to replace the captain. But that's not our problem. The issue is this: no minor review has been done to date. We've missed about 3 now. That's number 1. And nothing of that nature has ever been done. Like even the MDA debt. The moment the MDA debt is paid, I'll be the first person to go. And I'm surprised if she doesn't know me enough, and I think she does. So the issue of he will not come back here, I take exception to that, please. We can talk and make people feel good.
I say you
Let
may
us
not,
say
because
facts.
the opportunity will not be given to you.
No, Chineme already said that.
Now talking about the tariff,
the press will.
I said I'm buying at 68 naira.
Right.
I'm only allowed to sell for 31 naira. That is not normal. If she doesn't think it's not normal, and she's now saying that because even as you're telling at 31, how much are you remitting? Then that means she doesn't even understand.
But let's come to this.
If I'm selling at 68 naira,
right,
I'll be using the same number of marketers to collect. If I'm selling at 2 naira, I'll be using the same number of marketers, which means my recurring expenditure, my salary, how much I pay to even collect is the same. It's constant. So the issue of cost recovery is important to me, to her, to the whole value chain.
Look, there are more generators sold in Nigeria than all of Africa put together. What would it take to break the back of this cartel? We want to stop. I think somebody just sent us some video. I don't know if most of you already saw it. Somewhere in Benin, where some people had a generator in their living room.
Money.
No, they had generator in their living room, left it on, probably to power, and they died. Everybody died in the process. You know? Let's get down to the brass tacks. If this is a cartel, how do we break the back of this cartel? Because the country is quietly sinking. We may have the biggest GDP in all of Africa. It don't mean nothing. Just doesn't mean anything, because at the end of the day, we all seem to know the solution to the problem. You say it's the funding. What stops us from finding the right funding source and redoing the whole distribution network?
Exactly.
Or transmission network.
Exactly.
If you can produce as much electricity as much as possible,
even 20,000,
even 20, there's no reason why you cannot produce up to 50. There's enough gas in the country. What do we do?
Investment.
So what we need to do, what we need to do is for the federal government to take ownership of the power sector and not to politicize it anymore. We need to look at it. The generation companies, they have obligations. They're not supposed to be in debt perpetually. We need to look at the transmission company of Nigeria, fund them appropriately. Look at the value chain generally, come to the discourse, ensure that we reduce the aggregate technical, commercial and collection losses, the ATC and C losses that we're talking about, and for there to be trust and confidence between all of us or among us in the whole chain. Whatever I do on my board, BP have a director on my board. The NEC is the regulator. They have a right to move in any day. They do what they call open book. They can check, and if they find anything untoward, what we expect as ANED, if any of our members is found to have committed any infraction, just like if they have committed any infraction in TCN or even in GENCOs, the law should take its course, other than us grandstanding and making political statements, lumbering them together and calling them names.
But
I think what is wrong is problem with regulation. Consistent regulators, they should be consistent, they should do their job. The BPE that sit on the board of this company, GENCOs and DISCOs, they should represent the interest of Nigerian people on those boards. If my sister doesn't believe that is the way to go,
yes, I agree with
fine.
you on those 2
But
points.
for us, we believe that is the way to go.
In
But the
addition-
people that are on the boards are Nigerian.
Okay.
The BP people are Nigerian. NEC, those who even go and do open book, Nigerian. Operators, Nigerian. Regulators, Nigerian. Ministry of Power, Nigerian. Yola that they own, Nigerian. It is a problem for all of us. But the moment people want to be selfish or look at only self-interest without looking at the global picture and say, how do we get light to Nigerian people? Even those who do generator, why can't we, for a start, say, if you are the MD of a GENCO or a DISCO, or you are the chairman of the regulatory agency, or BP, Director General of BP, Minister of Power, Minister of State for Power, start with those categories and say, none of you should use generator in your homes.
I think
Go and get inverter.
We will have light.
Inverter will be charged when there is power from the DISCO.
Right.
If you are the minister here in Ashokoro and you have no generator because you've been asked never to use generator, once you don't have light, what do? You call AEDC. They have explanation to do. If the problem with the Katampe transmission station as we had recently, they will call TCN. What we do is that all of us, we are just deceiving ourselves. Let's be honest. And we want shortcut, like my sister does.
I have a
all she
different
wants
to
is
what
a
he
very
has done.
selfish, short-sighted shortcut, thinking that let me just go home. Let me see if I can carry something, go home. It won't work.
Please,
and time
I
will
take
tell.
exception to that as well. It's not selfish,
hold on,
it's not
Joe. Hold on,
self-centered.
Joe.
Oh.
I have
What is your
addition
take
to
on
what he
this?
has said.
I want to believe that the myth that or the story that generator dealers or sellers could be holding the country to ransom is a myth. Is not. I want to believe is not real.
But do you have any
The
proof
national
behind it?
grid is unable to provide electricity for 86 million Nigerians, approximately.
Nothing more
The
than that.
market is large. The generation companies can satisfy Nigerians.
No, but look at what I'm saying. Look at what I'm saying. There's no doubt about the size of the
I'm
market.
coming to you. I'm
Yeah.
coming to you. What I'm trying to say is that the problem with the power sector really is that nobody is taking responsibility for their jobs. The regulatory agency is failing on its job. The distribution company is failing on its own job. The generation company, partly, I think the generation company is perhaps the only one performing what it should do. The transmission company is also failing. The government as well is failing on its job. Everybody should own their responsibilities and live out their responsibilities. You don't freeze a tariff in between
For
a
political
business
reasons, to win an election.
cycle just because you want to win an election. You don't take such erratic regulatory decisions and expect that you come back to the level where you are. It's not possible. Some things will have to give in eventually.
Joy, you've been
Yes.
burning to answer, so go ahead. You got the floor
Okay, yes. The last recommendations, at least the 2 recommendations he made, were actually recommendations I was also itching to make, but he has already mentioned 2 of them. The third one I would want to state here is Nigerians, I think the federal government should come out to the public and make Nigerians understand whether power is a luxury or is a public good.
Social service.
You know, gone are those days when in primary and secondary school we say social amenities, we start mentioning electricity, hospital, good road. Electricity of today, is it a luxury good or is a social good? Now, it is a luxury good, allow the market forces to drive the tariff. If it is a social amenity, as we know, as we used to know, then the government should back it up. Which is why when we had a meeting with the discos, we told them, see, let us see how much you're collecting. If from the market you're collecting just 50% and it is 50% short, we will go behind you to the government and say, sorry, sir, 50% less. Please provide a buffer.
But the
for this
discos don't
50%.
want you to see what they collect.
They don't want me to see it. Transparency. That is where we had the quarrel.
So I mean,
Wait, let me
he's,
finish.
he's here now.
Let me finish.
Why don't
Let
you
me
want them
finish.
to see?
That is a lie.
Let me finish.
No, why?
Why do we?
No, but he
finish
said,
now?
he
Can we
just
ever
said-
solve this problem?
he
We
said-
cannot.
No. The truth
It's
is,
very clear.
you're both representing two
no.
organizations.
I'm
that
not
are
responsible
critical.
to the Gencos,
I
and they are
have
not
not
responsible to me.
finished.
NEC, our regulator, BPE, both of those bodies know how much each disco collects every month. And it's so easy to know. It's not something you can keep secret. We use banks, we submit all these statements, our accounts are audited. But you see, the lie and the problem with us is that you and I, we are counterparts. You cannot order me to do certain things, whether you like it or not. What you can do is this. Just like when they talk about escrowing account, they should escrow account of everybody. For our own, they should escrow account of the government, MDAs, for failing to pay their MDA debt. They should escrow account of TCN for owing about 1 billion to the discos every month. Because that's for imbalance penalty that is due to the discos. If you cannot carry load to where I need it, cannot get their 8%, they get 4%, 5%. Who should pay for that expected loss of revenue from that 3%? So it's either we do all of that so that all of us know what we are doing. But what do we do here? Cherry picking, naming, claiming, and blaming. Unfortunately, that is what we are doing now. On all sides, instead of blaming ourselves, why can't we all sit down and provide solution? The first solution is to look at
Sorry, one second here. Obviously, we've been able to identify that Genco's mean business. You want to be able to generate power as much. Disco, you want to be able to distribute, even though there's tremendous issues with your collection system.
Yes.
I mean, one of the things that one can quickly point to is that most homes here don't even have meters.
Meters, yes.
You know, and
Meters
some people are
are
still
not cheap.
connecting. They're still
Legally.
connecting illegally.
Exactly.
One of the things that, I mean, one will expect that Cisco will do is go on a public relation drive to let the public know for the person who's connecting illegally, it's costing you.
We've been doing that a lot.
You've been doing that a lot.
A lot.
What is a solution that, I mean, this is the time you call for a retreat. You Cisco's, you Gencos, there needs to be an international conference on how to resolve power in Nigeria. It has to be, because all you stakeholders now need to come together with the government. If they are the people who are guilty, then let them take the blame. We need to snuff out where these problems are. Nigerians are suffering.
I think everybody in Nigeria knows the problems. Although maybe the larger audience may not really know the technicalities, but if you ask, most of them know the problem in the power sector. Like he rightly said, we have regulatory issue.
Can we just take a quick break? Welcome back. As you can see, this is a very serious and heated debate. For those who've ever thought that the Gencos have issues, that's why they're not getting electricity. And there are those who are thinking that the discos are responsible. But there's also a journalist who's been following everything, who says the problem is everything put together, especially the role that government is not playing as a big brother in this situation. The issue of funding, I raise the issue that if this thing is to be resolved, we need an international conference of not only stakeholders, but potential financiers to be around the table. Why hasn't that happened, Joy?
Severally, there have been workshops organized, in fact, innumerable. And investors have attended those conferences and workshops to listen to the issues. But like I said, like he rightly said, this hydra-headed issue called politics is a major thing. Because due to the
politics because of vested interests or what? You can say.
The reason why politics is playing in electricity, I don't know if it is as a result of vested interest or is because it's the Nigerian thing, as in we normally call it.
Sunday,
yes,
is it vested interest or is it, when is it a Nigerian thing? That is too broad. What is the bane of the problem?
Vested interest, self-interest, selfishness, lack of patriotism.
Lack of patriotism.
Yes, saying something and doing another thing under the table. All those put together is the bane of our progress, whether you're talking about power sector or even other sectors. I'm talking about the investors. The answer is for us to be able to get foreign investors. People were blaming the last government that they sold to their friends. But people forget, and she can confirm that too, that they actually went around the world looking for investors to buy these entities. But they could not find a single serious foreign investor. Why? The reason is that the investors said Nigeria is not ready for business. That unless and until we fight corruption to the ground, they cannot come and risk their money. There are a lot of hedge funds all over the world, pension funds. Go and look at even the Canadian Teachers Pension Fund alone is enough to sustain the Nigerian power sector and cheap. To access it, there are a lot of things, and they will need federal government guarantee anyway. But because of the way we are and what we are, what you find is that they are afraid to come and invest here. It is easier for people to go on NTA and be shouting investment destination. Nigeria is, if we are ready for business, let us see how we fight graft. How many people have been convicted of corruption?
You
Public
brought a
office,
good point.
even private sector.
You brought a good point.
But I keep saying, instead of pointing and kissing finger, are you afraid of chiefs? If you know the chiefs, even among discos, tell us now. Tell the public. Do your work. Among Gencos, in TCN, in the ministry, there are a lot of people who live on generator business, and they are either former public or government officials. So when my brother said generator mafia or whatever it's a big problem.
It is a big
It has always been a big problem.
Right.
And be honest, if you are a supplier of generator
Right.
to a big country like this, where there's electric power supply, and you are making a cool 50 billion naira a year, will you ever like them to fix their power sector? The answer is no.
Well,
The answer is no.
that's why I said it.
Now, the truth is that I don't blame them. There are cartels in Italy, everywhere, all over the world. It is those who are abusing us. I'm not being personal here. From 1960, our problem has been leadership. One leader will come and say, I will do this. Another one will. We started a reform process around 2001, 2002, during the time of President Obasanjo. It went all the way. Another president took over, who was more or less a younger brother to him. That one stopped everything that he was doing. That one was going on again in his own way. Each one come and choose their path. And unfortunately, he died. Another man took over. And we've been going like that. It's a roller coaster kind of thing. Go and do an audit check, integrity check. of everybody who has participated in the power sector since 1960, from 1960 to date, check ministers and all their PAMSEC from 1960 to date. Check their lifestyle, go and check their assets, see what they are doing. Everybody, without mentioning names, you'll be shocked at what you will find.
No,
So if we are not talking about that, we are fighting, operators fighting among themselves. Your investor put money down. It was not sold to them free. My investor put money down. It was dollar that my investor paid anyway. I don't know whether Genco paid naira.
We pay dollars as
Thank
well.
you.
You know
And
it.
when we paid dollar, it was 150
Okay,
naira to
dollars.
$1.
Correct.
And now we are paying back our loan at 450 naira to $1. We went to central
Yes,
bank.
at a point,
Say,
500.
central bank, let us be paying naira to you. Sell dollar. This is what we are paying quarterly at loan. Central bank said no dollar. So they were expected to buy from the black market. Who are the ones selling at the black market? Nigeria, we hail thee. Let us fix power. If you don't fix the power sector,
They will
you
tell
can
you
never
it's-
fix Nigeria.
it's CBN.
To fix Nigeria, you
But-
must fix the power sector.
No,
This
but-
not about
but
this
listen.
program. You must fix the power sector to
you
fix Nigeria
might
economy.
you might give some credit to at least, I don't think before now we've ever seen any government that has even attempted to
That's-
expose
that's
this
correct.
level of corruption.
That's
Look
correct.
at the billions that have left this country.
Finding money in
Mr.
the
Shola,
corners.
I think
You know,
I
so
think we
you've
should,
got to give them that
$41
credit.
million. Bring that to the power sector. Don't give it to us as operators.
Mr. Shola, I
Use
think-
it
I
to
think-
go and buy even transformers.
I think we should.
Go to the Genco, pay part of their debt. You will see how much they will produce.
No, yeah, I mean,
So we are playing to the gallery. We're talking
there's
grammar,
no need
blowing
to-
English.
We're all going
Let
beyond
us solve
that.
problem, for
We're
God's sake.
already seeing where
Blaming
all
everybody.
these monies
I
are
don't want to
being
deal with
hidden.
you. I don't want to-
But
It will not
Chineme,
happen.
what are you trying to say?
I think that businesses follow numbers. No matter how bad a society may be, businesses would always follow numbers. Mr. Dutton talked about the Canadian pension fund being huge enough to fund the power sector. Back home here, we have the pension fund that is over $1 trillion that can fund the power sector. We may not even have to go to Canada. We have over $1 trillion in the pension fund that can fund the power sector. But then the PENCOM is saying we can't fund the power sector because the power sector is not showing us the right signs. If the power sector isn't showing investors the right signs, you can't get investors to put in money where they know that they won't get their monies back. I still insist that
Strong point.
the right things should be done. Electricity is an economic good. It has to be treated as an economic good. It has to be priced rightly.
Paid for.
If government wants to still remain as a player in the electricity industry, the government should bring its own equity. The government has equity in the discourse.
40%.
40% equity in the discourse. If government wants to subsidize electricity and don't let the Gencos go down, government should provide that subsidy. But if you want to keep playing the ostrich and passing the box around, we're all going to end up somehow in a bad situation.
So basically, I mean, if I can avert to what you just said, it's not just the Canadian Teachers Fund. We got the money here too.
we have the money, the pension.
I mean, apart from the 40-something million that was found,
41.
41 million that was found in somebody's account. The reality is that all these funds could have come together for the sole purpose of alleviating some of these sectorial problems.
Nigerians funded the privatization process.
Yes.
So what are we saying? We can fund this sector out of what it is. When the privatization was completed in 2013, the Nigeria Infrastructure Advisory Facility, it's a UK-funded advisory platform, gave a very real analysis of the troubles of the power sector and told the government that you need to checkmate the shortfalls that are building up.
Exactly.
And asked the government to provide 50 billion to checkmate these shortfalls. NIAF raised this alarm in 2014. The government wished it away. We are back to what NIAF had said back then. So it's just all about not interested.
So it's a question of the will to do it and being able to check our most basic problem in the country, which is corruption.
Exactly. Then you come back again to when this present administration took over. The NIPPs were low-hanging fruit that the government could easily plug.
Yeah.
What do they need? Checkmate the gas constraints, plug the gas to the NIPP plants, the vandalism, improve generation. But the government wasted time. The government refused to appoint regulators, board of commissioners for the NEC for a year plus. How do you run a market like that? It's like saying the CBN, we are suspending you, banks, do whatever you like.
Exactly, no government.
The financial sector will collapse, obviously.
The truth is, I know even if the power sector is properly run, Nigerians are prepared to pay.
Exactly.
Because if you look at it right now, I can use myself as an example. I buy a drum of diesel for every 10 to 14 days, a drum. A drum, I think that's 200 liters. Can you imagine if I have to pay? I would rather prefer to pay the disco than to go buy a drum and with the smell and all the other things and the environmental pollution.
And the good thing about it is that the discos, when they give you their bills,
Yes.
it could be 100,000. They could work out repayment plan with you. They've had it with companies who are heavy users. And they say, okay, if you are able to pay 60% of this consistently, we keep supplying you.
Yeah, that's been proactive.
Businesses run on credit eventually.
Absolutely. Wow. I think this is an issue that I hope the powers that be are listening, because Nigeria is going nowhere without power. Joy, I know you seem to have some parting shots. What exactly?
Yes. Asking the question, what are the solutions to the power sector? I'm very much aware that every government, successive government or current government, they have always had power as one of their, if it's agenda 7, at least power is always either number 1, or I think power always has occupied the first 3 agendas. And this current government, their policy statement is incremental power. But then, like I said in my publications and what I've said, incremental power has, for you to increase power, other parts of the value chain has to be in sync. If I bring out power, power cannot be fetched in buckets. And I cannot store it in jerry cans. As I generate, transmission should be capable of taking it. And distribution should be capable of distributing it to the consumers. Yes. And then on the consumer side, consumers should be willing to pay for what they are receiving. If the telecommunication, which you cited as a progressive and a very successful sector in Nigeria, even my grandmother in the village cannot make a call to me here in Abuja if she doesn't have a credit on her phone.
Correct.
So if grandparents can even buy 100 naira credit and charge their phone and make a call, before you put on light, remember that light costs something. And if government thinks that those in the rural areas, or there is a class of Nigerians that cannot pay, then government should put some money aside that goes towards that. That's 1. 2 of my solution, 2 in my list of solutions, government should strengthen the transmission network.
That's a must.
Yes, it's a must, because it is still within government. It is still a government asset. It has not been privatized. If government feels the right decision to make is to privatize or to concession or whatever decision, what is important is government should do its own part during the privatization, the reform process. You were saying that generation facilities, or maybe the GENCOs bought assets that didn't have transmission. Yes, we all knew that there were some transmission challenges. The federal government promised us.
Yes.
They promised us that the transmission network will be strengthened. and that as you're taking over, transmission will be willing. I recall I was in that meeting when TCN came on board and boasted that they have the capacity to transmit up to 6,500. This was as of 2013. Today is 2017, and we are still talking about transmission going between 4,000 and 4,005. Something must be wrong. You see that representative from TCN who mentioned in an international conference that was held in Sheraton, either he didn't give us the full story, or his subordinate did not give him the right facts.
He simply,
yes.
he prevaricated.
Yes. Okay, so that is my number 2 solution. Number 3, we need an independent regulator. A regulator that when he wants to take decision, he will not get a call from the National Assembly, mellow down. He will not get a call from the ministry or the powers that be, don't take that action. A regulator that is independent. A regulator that is an umpire, impartial umpire. We need that regulator. A strengthened, firm, knowledgeable regulator that can regulate the market. Because currently, what we are seeing is the center cannot hold.
An incorruptible regulator.
Yes, an incorruptible regulator. Yes, so that's my number 3 solution. Number 4, we need firm monitoring and benchmarking. Like he said, the privatization was based on contracts. Those contracts, we need an independent monitoring agent. This person is also incorruptible. That can say, Disco, you did this wrong. You are penalized. And will not receive any call from anywhere. And can tell Genco, you are manipulating this figure. You are penalized for this, and will not get any call from anybody, grandfather or whatever the Nigerian factor may be. So, firm monitoring and benchmarking, according to their contracts. You contracted that year 1, you will meter 100. By December 31st, I checked the book. How many have you metered? 20.
Yes.
You are short of 80. This is your penalty.
But that's the situation in serious countries.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we don't have that. See, my friend and brother was accusing me that I didn't want to say the obvious. We're talking about power sector, and I didn't want to go outside other sector to say what is happening and what is not. I just really want to focus on power. But one of the issues from my research I have done and have seen is firm monitoring and benchmarking is one of our problems in Nigeria. Check all the privatization that has been done by BP. Check how many of them are successful.
But
you know why it's not successful so far?
Why?
Lack of firm monitoring and benchmarking.
Yeah, but you see, you might fair monitor and benchmark as much as you want to. But if that phone call comes in, who is benchmarking? Who is monitoring?
This is why I said
At
that
the end
we
of
should
the day,
remove politics.
Politics, remove corruption.
Okay, well.
You see,
I
you
call
keep
it
talking about politics.
Yes.
Okay? Politics, I mean, we can
I don't want to call it
try.
corruption because I don't know the definition of corruption. Remember, the former president defined corruption for me. Yes. The current administration may define corruption in a different. So I'm saying politics.
No, corruption is what you mean.
Okay, then. So
let me say it on your behalf.
Okay, say it on my behalf. Now, finally.
But anyway,
yes.
we understand clearly. You made your point. I'm just rounding up.
Okay.
Chineme, what is your parting shot here?
I think that the problems of the power sector are well known. The government and the operators know these problems, and that they need to now begin to tell themselves the truth. I still repeat that every operators in this value chain had not lived up to expectation. I take it from the government. The government has refused to ensure that the sector scales. We need.
But sorry, why don't you do this? You're in the public arena as, a journalist.
Yeah.
At what point do we begin to name names?
We don't have to wait for...
When do we need to have this, shame?
Name and shame.
Name and shame.
We don't have to wait for any point. We have to name names, name and shame anybody at any point in time, because Nigerians have suffered too much.
Then why don't you take up the gauntlet?
I like to bring back one of the stories we did once when the discos were frustrating the bulk electricity trader and the regulatory agency from escrowing their accounts, escrowing their letters of credit. Some of the discos went to court to challenge that on the premise that you've not given us what we wanted. And then we took up these stories, and it trended for a very long time. Journalism has to be practiced with decency, irrespective of the fact that we need to expose the ills that goes on in the society. You can't you can't possibly call names of people that you're not sure about.
No, that's where you do your research. Nobody's asking you to do that.
Whenever we do research, we restrict to discourse, government agencies, government officials that are frustrating the jobs that the sector should do. We've called out the NEC. We've called them out on what they've done wrong. We've called out the Ministry of Power on what they've done wrong. We've called out the discourse. We've called out the GenCos. There are certain discourse that are extremely recalcitrant. And whenever we write, we peg that name, that adjective against them. So we've called out names. We've named and shamed. But the problem I have always said, and I share with my colleagues whenever they ask me, why aren't we getting power, is that Nigerian consumers, to an extent, I'm sorry, we often don't take information and run with it. When the journalist breaks a story, when the journalist provides information to you, you don't act on them. You expect that somehow, somebody somewhere should act on this information. Today, electricity meter is free. You go to the discourse, you fill in the forms, you submit the forms, and you are expected to get your meters within a certain period of time. But Nigerians don't do this. They will call you to say, meters are not free. You need to come and help me talk to somebody. When do we begin to enforce our rights? You don't pay for meters, but somebody will call you to say, I'm ready to pay. I just need it. Help me talk to somebody. If a large number of consumers decide to push the discourse to do their responsibilities, the discourse will do their responsibilities.
There's enough blame to go around, there's no doubt. But I know that because you're the front line, you're the face that customers see. They don't know about the transmission company. The GenCos are in the background, so Joy, you can hide a little bit. The discos, you see, you have a lot to do. You have a lot to do within your group, but I think even beyond that, the need to now begin to educate Nigerians as to what Chineme said, what their rights are, the availability of meters, etc., is your job. But let us hear your parting shot.
Well, first I want to align myself with what my learned sister said, the solution that she read out, as well as my brother here. So I won't repeat what they have said. I agree entirely. I want to go to another angle that is very important too. First, to the numerous customers all over the country, we need to pay for what we use. We need to have a culture of payment. Last week I was in Kano, Katsina, and Jigawa states. And in Kano, I was taken to a neighborhood where they were being given estimated bill until 3 months ago, when Kano Disco was able to meter. Because in spite of all the challenges that we are having, we're still metering, but the rate has gone down because of the expense of it. the shortfall that made it practically impossible, very difficult to meter our customers. So they meter those neighborhoods and they were objecting to metering. How many Nigerians hear about that? The location in Jeba, under Ibadan Disco, I was there. That was late last year. They were.
Sorry, when they object
They
to
didn't want
metering
meter.
like that. No, I got you.
When they got the prepaid meter, the one in Kano,
Yes.
a rich man that is very popular, I won't name names, he realized that the cost was higher than when he was getting estimated billing. Ask an average Nigerian, they say estimated billing is higher, always higher. In some cases, yes, but in many cases,
No.
not necessarily. It is what you use, energy conservation. So I went, because for cultural or religious reasons, in that axis, I could not even enter everywhere, but the few places they took me into, the rich man allowed me access to few places. Even the guest toilet, the light was on. You see, you don't put on the light somewhere when you are not using it, when you're not there. So energy conservation, and I was on TVC this morning, we do continuous, it's not an easy thing, but we do. The other thing is that we also need the federal government to take the bull by the horn. We should do something on how to deal with energy theft. She's not getting enough from me. I'm not paying enough. I'm not repeating enough. There's no doubt about that. If she may have only one reason, but I can have 5 to 6, 10 reasons. One of those reasons is energy theft. And when we catch them, we do not have prosecuting powers. Give them to police in 2014, February. I was chief legal advisor and company secretary of Ibadan Disco. And we caught 2 gentlemen who stole transformer oil, 25-liter keg, 20 of those 25-liter kegs. That's a big one. Imagine where they got it from. And we took them to the state police headquarters, in Abeokuta. And we caught them somewhere in Remo. Before I went there the 3rd day, they've been released. They took money from them. I traced one of them. He confessed to me that he paid 25,000 naira to the police. We cannot continue to run a system like this and we expect better results. So we need to have mobile court specifically to try electricity-related offenses. I caught a retired PAPSEC stealing energy in Abeokuta. What I did, I called Channel Television. I took TV there, NTA and Channel TV. Oh yeah, eventually the man paid, was begging us not to take him to court. We should have like a mobile court, whereby a man like that will take that mobile court to the marketplace. The purpose is deterrent, not really punishment. Maximum, if it's going to be custodial sentence, 14 days maximum. Or fine them, or let them do community
service
work. All these things are possible. If we do that, it will reduce. Go to hotels, they bypass so much. All these problems and leakages cannot be handled by discos alone, not even by the power sector alone. We need the law enforcement agencies. So all these things have to do with the society that we live in. So I feel that the best way to solve the problem for all of us to put Nigeria first. People, when you have so much money, and you will say to alone you have 8 houses and you're a public official, if you are listening to me, I beg you don't need 8 houses. You don't need 8 houses now. You are working in the ministry and you have 8 houses, we say truth. I know the houses. Why? You cannot sleep on 2 beds. Even if you need for investment after retirement, 1 is enough. 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. 2 is okay. Yeah. So if we can put Nigeria first, an average Nigerian elite is a greedy person.
You're right.
Let us talk true to ourselves. Let us please. I'm begging you. Put Nigeria first.
Sunday,
the power sector will be okay.
I think you said it for everybody. Put Nigeria first. Joy, thank you so much. I think you've been able to educate Nigerians as to what GENCOs do. And I think you've held very well for the GENCOs. Sunday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure being here.
You were very feisty about defending the discos. And I think even for me, I've learned a lot about what has been going on between the two of you, because most times we only hear about the discos. And Chineme, well, thank you for shedding some more light on some of the issues about some of our power problems. The one you didn't get right, though, is the cartel one. Because you can trace it. We know where that is. Ladies and
Or
gentlemen,
maybe you didn't generate that.
we'd like to thank you for being part of this very, very interesting summit on power solution, and how to get Nigeria onto the right track like any industrialized nation. We thank you.